Carried. Certainly a reminder to disclose any pecuniary interest.
Yeah, I do. I need to declare a deemed conflict on items 7.2.5 and 7.2.6. I have family living in the location of those properties being discussed.
Okay, duly noted. Anything else?
Doesn't appear to be, sir.
What's that?
Does not appear to be.
Okay, next item is the adoption of the minutes. So we have a recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting on February 11th, 2021 and committee of the whole on February 18th, 2021 be adopted as circulated and printed. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Rowe and seconded by Tellier. All in favor of that, and that is also carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. Again, as we have Minister Yurt coming on at 10 o'clock, and we're not at that time yet, we will move on to staff reports. The Operation and Community Services, Lee, do you want to start with that?
Lee, you're muted.
Yes, sorry. Good morning, everybody. So this is the annual renewal for our landfill monitoring. So this comes every spring. It's the same company, obviously, as laid out in the report. Weiss, which is now Blumetric, has been with us since the inception of this program back in 2006, and we've had good luck with them. So the recommendation would be to continue.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, you feel the value is there, Lee, not needing to go to the marketplace on this at one point or another?
Actually, we saw a slight decrease in their annual cost about 3 years ago, and the last 2 years they've held the line. So this is the first real increase that we've seen from them in the last few years. So certainly, if that was council's desire next year or later this year, we would probably want to go out for an RFP if we were going to look at that this year for next year. But certainly, I feel that the value is there. Like I said, we've never had all the reporting to the ministry has all been on time and accurate, and we've never had any issues since they've been here. So I feel they are doing a good job for the municipality.
Everybody comfortable with leaving status quo unless something changes? Angela?
Councillor Cameron, you're muted.
I'm fine with. I know, I got it. Sorry. I'm fine with leaving it status quo. If we were to go to tender, Lee, would we have to hire a consultant to write the RFP?
No, not necessarily for an RFP. That would be request for proposals. We know what we require from them. So it would be a fairly straightforward process, I think, to write that. Like I said, they do have all the history of the landfill here at West Elgin. So obviously there would have to be, we would probably have to supply a fair bit of information to anybody that was looking to submit a proposal. That would likely be the time consuming part.
So this would be a fairly small market that would be able to bid on it, if I'm guessing correctly. It'd be similar to our water service provider where there's very few people that can bid.
Correct. It would have to be an environmental monitoring company that would do that.
I think everybody's
fine with it, status quo.
I think everybody's fine with it as long as, we don't feel that we're getting taken advantage of by a sole source contractors. So we'll keep an eye on it going forward.
Certainly, there will be a presentation. We'll try and schedule. I know with COVID last year, we missed our annual presentation, but we'll certainly try and make sure that that goes forward in April of this year once the 2020 annual report has been finalized.
Okay. With that, we do have a recommendation that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operation and Community Services, and that West Elgin Council approve the 2021 landfill monitoring contract submitted by Blue Metric Environmental. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Lethan and seconded by Rowe. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, Heather, first up is the letter of concurrence for 158 Main Street. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Your Worship. Hi, so just to provide a bit of background, this tower is at the West Elgin Fire Hall. It's on our lands. It's been in existence for almost probably 4 years. There has already been a modification to it in terms of adding an antenna to it. What the company is asking for is so they need to clean up some loose ends. They never received a letter of concurrence back when they did this in 2016 because they never requested for it. And I believe the understanding was they didn't need it because it was on municipal lands and because we were the owners and we'd entered into the licensing agreement. That seems to not be the case now. They're now requesting for this letter of concurrence, as well as they also need to make one further modification to the site, that being they need to fence the site. And in particular with that fencing, they are required to add a barbed wire along the top part of the fencing to keep people from climbing the tower, which is, I guess, I understand is a requirement with their licensing. So they're just asking for council to provide a letter of concurrence at 158 Main Street.
Any questions for Heather? Bonnie?
It's kind of a strange justification letter because it makes it seem as though the fence and the radio cabinet are already in place. So I find that a little strange, whether it was intended to be there in the first place and they just never got around to doing it or something, I don't know. But at any rate, they did mention that the location of the tower has some financial impact for the municipality. Could you advise me as to what that is?
Well, we are in a licensing agreement with them, and it was my understanding at the beginning of this, and I don't know if this is the case, maybe Magda can add further. It's my understanding that we received free internet for our facilities as a result of this tower. Magda, are you able to add anything more to it beyond what I understand?
Yes, so initially, the initial agreement consisted of providing, they had to provide us with free internet, and that internet was at that time needed at the fire hall. Things have changed last year, and with our with us trying to establish mutual internet connection at all our facilities. We have right now, we have point-to-point connection with the fire hall. So basically, so they can access our municipal systems from the fire hall. And we no longer use tech-savvy internet connection. So that, I think that will need to be updated in our agreement as well with tech-savvy, as right now the municipality is not benefiting anything.
Now, just to clarify in my own mind, is that tower there, does the municipality own that tower?
My understanding is no. No towers are owned by a private property owner. It would be owned by tech-savvy. We have a licensing agreement to allow for that tower to be on our site, so on the premises of our property.
I was just kind of amazed that when you take a look at the circle around that tower. I mean, being a 150-foot tower, it certainly doesn't stretch out very far. I thought that kind of odd, you know, certainly looking at Councillor Cameron's situation. Have you talked to Tech Savvy? Is there an opportunity for you to get broadband off that tower, Angela?
No, I can't, because there is a bush line directly in front of me that has 120-foot trees.
Okay.
So they need to come out further. I'm not really sure why the tower is where it is. It needs to be more to the exterior of the village to reach the residents that need internet service, not within the village interior.
Okay, maybe that's something that we can have some discussion with Tech Savvy of as we enter into these negotiations to maybe being a rationale for putting Tech Savvy putting another tower out north of West Lauren there to catch people like yourself over top of that tree line and try to get more people some internet. So certainly, I think Magda, we can have those discussions with Tech Savvy. Okay. Anything else, Heather, or is that Tressa?
Through the chair, good morning, everyone. Just wondered if maybe we could put a bug in the ear of the Tech Savvy and a letter to them in regards to having something more towards, I know there's something right now at Graham and Furnival, but something more on the other side of the 401, or more towards becoming agreement with Dunwich. Somewhere along that might service people out that way a little better. Just a thought.
My understanding is 120-foot tower is cost installed is there's a bit of variance on servicing it with electricity, and also if there needs to be a small building built, and also the access into it. So you're somewhere around $15,000 per tower. So I think that we need to have those open discussions with Tech Savvy, being that the tower is there. Let's see if we can utilize it a little farther. Bonnie?
Yeah, this really plays into our whole discussion about internet capacity within our municipality. And personally, when I read these two articles, I started plotting towers on a map, just because that's something, as far as I know, we don't have in the municipality. We don't have a map of who owns what towers, what area they cover, and how many residents within that area have service, and maybe we can never find out who actually uses the service. But as you look at those circles that were on that report, you see what a small area that really does cover. And I suspect that this tower likely is helpful along the 401 more than anything. It just adds to the ability of vehicles going down the 401 to not have skipped airtime kind of thing. But I think this really is part of a bigger conversation that hopefully we'll be able to have with some of the ISPs that are in our area.
Just for council's information, that again, I have a connectivity meeting this afternoon, and that component about having good mapping to understand the areas that do have internet and those that are on the fringe areas and those that are not getting it all is something that the connectivity committee recognizes as a #1 priority, that we do some proper mapping and find out what we have and where it is located. So I know we're having some discussions about hiring a consultant to come in and help the committee establish some of these parameters. I think, Tress, you were up first.
Through the chair, when you're doing that mapping, if we could just make sure the information that we actually have is what they're telling us that we have for service for our residents in our area actually really is what service we have for residents in our area. I find the discrepancy sometimes. We get a report from external agencies, and then what we are told is not the actual service area what we're getting. So that would be great to have the exact information.
Angela?
To the chair, just to point something out too, when it comes to the mapping, I've actually recently undertaken my own personal project for our farm, working with a particular company. And when he was looking at his own mapping software from his office, he projected a tower of a certain height bouncing off a tower in the village limits. When they came out with a bucket truck to our farm, the tower height was a completely different height. 150-foot tower. So what looks on a computer is one thing versus another thing on the actual landscape. Because Google mapping or what Google Earth has isn't 100% accurate, because you can't guess the tree height of bushes that are around our municipality. And that, I think, might make mapping difficult. And because, you know, they were projecting a 90-foot tower, and then when he got here with the bucket truck, we had to go to a 150-foot tower, which is quite a bit more money. So just keep that in mind with your connectivity committee. Google Earth isn't exactly accurate when you're going to point to point to point.
I think that the mapping, correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, that county just entered into an agreement with for GIS mapping, which I think is much more detailed. It gives you a lot of elevations and things that to go along being able to show us just where all properties lie, because there is a tremendous difference in the elevation across our own municipality here.
Yes, the program or the software that the county is currently in the process of procuring is through Esri, which is much more sophisticated than just a Google mapping.
Okay.
It would take into consideration, Angela, the I know with Juice Connects, his mapping will show you actually show you the elevations, and you know, it's very easy to get 50, 60, 70 feet difference in elevation, which makes a tremendous difference when you're trying to get line of sight. Richard?
Yeah, through the chair. Can you hear?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I think it's a good idea to have a talk with Tech Savvy, especially as now they're using our land and we're really having no service off them. So really, like you said, you know, north of the 401, I'm sure, you know, they'd like some more custom too. And that way they'd be sort of paying back a little bit of what they've taken already. You know, they're not paying rent on that land. We're having no service, and I'm pretty sure if they were talked to in the right manner, that they might extend their service a little further into the country.
Yeah, certainly. I know that Julie, CAO at the county, and myself have been to the offices of Tech Savvy in Chatham, and they seem to be a fairly reasonable, progressive company. So I think you know, we're on the edge of this, and again, the committee at the county is starting to get some legs underneath it. So I think that over the next number of months, hopefully we can move this forward quite a little bit. Any other questions on that letter of concurrence from Tech Savvy? Seeing none, I have a recommendation that Gastogan Council hereby receives the report from Heather James regarding request from Tech Savvy Solutions, Inc. Fortner International for modifications to an existing telecommunication tower site located at 158 Main. And the West Ogden Council hereby agrees to the modifications to the existing telecommunications tower site located at 158 Main, and that West Ogden directs the CAO Treasurer to sign the attached letter of concurrence. Do you think we should have a discussion with them before we sign that letter? Just to feel them out and see what they're. So we have council's authority to sign the letter, and we'll have a discussion with Tech Savvy in the very near future. Mover and seconder for that report. Moved by Tellier, seconded by Leatham. All in favor? And that is carried. What do you want to do here? Is Mr. Urick coming on exactly at 10, or do we know? Or we can, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we continue on? And if Mr. Urick comes on, we'll break and deal with him.
That's
All right.
what I would suggest, sir.
Okay, next item up, 7.2.2, request for letter of concurrence for 8650 Furnival Road. Is that out of Port Glasgow, is it not, Heather?
Yes, that tower is at the Port Glasgow Trailer Park. Again, they're asking for the same things. They need to provide the fencing around the tower, which also includes the barbed wire fencing along the top. So it's the same thing as the last request.
And I think it's in the same situation. It's not a very tall tower.
No, it's shorter than the one in West Lorne.
And I know that there's an appetite. I think that they are in a position to service our park and maybe some of Port Glasgow, but I know that the residents in Lakewood are desperately short of Wi-Fi. So maybe we can have the discussions with them regarding that tower, the same as we're having with West Lorne. Angela. Go ahead, Angela. You're muted.
Sorry, I mute myself. Heather, this is a question for you. The reason they don't put them up so high has to do with the CRTC regulations and the height requirement, just for my personal understanding. Is that why these towers are all of varying heights? I don't fully understand the height requirements with the province.
Well, I don't know whether there's.
Because I know these towers, and now these towers are different heights. Like, there's no consistency with the tower height.
I
Is
think
there a reason why?
When it comes to the tower height, I think that where you get into issues is with Nav Canada and the actual marking of the towers. The higher you go up, I think it puts you in different classifications. But I think that the 150 mark seems to be the trend that XplorNet is making application today, and they've just recently put one up. I think up to 150 feet is not a concern. The one out at the Old Boys Park, I wouldn't think it's 100 feet. It's not very tall. So, like I say, we'll have those. What's that? Go ahead.
If you're under 90, it doesn't have to meet certain requirements and qualifications when I was looking at the provincial regulations.
Right.
So that's why.
Yeah, 90 feet really isn't you don't get a lot of range out of a 90-foot tower with the tree cover that we have. Richard.
Yeah, through the chair. I think the reason for the height of that tower is because from there it can adequately reach the one on Pearson's transporting. And so they go from one to another to another. And I think they build them because of the terrain that's around, and there's no bush line. It's straight down Furnival. So I believe that's what they just do it so they can go from tower to tower. That's what I think anyway.
Well, certainly it's unfortunate, even with the Lakewood community out there having difficulty getting internet when the tower's fairly close, but there is a fair bit of bush in between the two of them. So
yes, there is.
We'll have some conversations with Tech Savvy, seeing if we can encourage them to expand their service in West Elgin. Anything else on that, Heather?
Nothing further.
Okay, so I do have a recommendation that West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Heather James regarding the request from Tech Savvy Solutions, Inc., Fortner International for modifications to an existing telecommunication tower site located at 8650 Furnival Road, and that West Elgin Council hereby agrees to the modifications to an existing telecommunications tower site located at 8650 Furnival Road, and that West Elgin directs the CEO treasurer to sign the attached letter of concurrence. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Rowe and seconded by Tallier. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, next item up. Request for a letter of concurrence for 131 Clacken Road. Okay, Heather?
Okay, thank you. So this is a proposal for a brand new tower. The tower is going to be put up and owned by ExploreNet Communications, Inc. The tower height will be 45 meters or 147.64 feet. Light duty self-support lattice tower with transmitting and receiving antennas and radio equipment. Primary use will be to provide wireless voice and data coverage and capacity for areas southeast of Bothwell.
Okay. Just what kind of come across my mind, is there any public input into a tower going up? Do we have to
Yes, absolutely. There's been public consultations. So in my report, I've identified the public consultation that has occurred. A mail notification was sent on January 18th and January 20th to affected property owners within the municipality of West Elgin, as well as the municipality of Chatham-Kent. As well as a public notice was published in the West Elgin Chronicle on January 24th, 2021. There's a 30-day commenting period. That closed on February 22nd, and no comments were received.
Okay. Teresa?
Through the chair, yes, Heather, I saw that it ended on February 22nd for the comments from the public. Do we know how many in our municipality were sent letters in regards to this?
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I do have the Excel spreadsheet that I sent off to them. I could update council after your meeting with Mr. Urich. That'd give me a chance just to look at the Excel spreadsheet, and I could give you that update.
Sure, that would be great if you could just pop that off to us.
Yep. So just so you're aware, the circulation list is actually 3.5 times the tower height. So it's a little bit further than what I would circulate for a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay,
and if I
makes
recall,
sense.
if my memory serves me correct, I think it was 10 or less people within West Elgin, and Chatham-Kent had a similar number as well.
When I mapped it out for myself, I was thinking more like, yeah, the 10 to 15 range. So yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that.
Yep, I can give you a further update after your meeting with Mr. Urich.
Bonnie, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just curious whether we have any idea how many West Elgin homes this might provide internet access to.
Unfortunately, I was not provided that data.
That's the unfortunate thing you find with these telecommunications companies. They're proprietarial. They don't give any information out. They're very, very quiet about what it may or may not do, and it makes it very difficult when you're trying to provide internet to your local residents when you really haven't got a good handle on exactly what the companies are trying to accomplish. So, but then again, I don't think that anything that could possibly expand the broadband coverage in rural communities, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of opposition to these towers. Any other questions on that? So we have a recommendation that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Heather James regarding a request from ExploreNet Communications, Inc., CEO Forbes Brother Limited, to permit a new telecommunications tower located at 22131 Clacken Road, and that West Elgin Council approves of the proposed communications tower located at 22131 Clacken Road, and that West Elgin directs the CEO treasurer to sign the letter of concurrence. Mover and seconder. Moved by Tallier, seconded by Leatham. While we're on broadband, I have received a letter from North Frontenac Communications. They're looking for a letter of support from West Elgin Council for North Frontenac to apply to the Universal Broadband Fund to expand service in West Elgin. And unless anybody has a problem, I don't think there's an issue with certainly signing a letter of support for them. Bonnie?
Yeah, no problem at all. And once again, any idea of what expansion they're thinking of?
Again, very tight-lipped. I know that it's very, very frustrating for me when it's so tight-lipped that you can't really even find out what area they might be looking at. So being that they're a fiber company, it probably they're looking more at doing fiber than anything else. But where and when, I don't know. I think it might be a blanket letter that they're asking all municipalities to support. Of course, we're all hungry for additional broadband, and that gives them the opportunity to go to the fund and saying we have municipal support. And it's maybe a fishing exercise to find out where they can actually find money. So, but as far as us supporting them, I think it's probably a good idea. Do I need a resolution for that, Janet, to send them?
I can write the letter as long as you provide me the information I need to send it to.
They have supplied me with a form letter.
Okay. If you've got the form letter, it would.
Yeah.
I suppose the rest of it's up to the rest of council. To me, they should probably see it and then pass a resolution to support that letter. Do we need it out now, or can it wait till our March 11th council meeting?
See, I'd have to go into my email to find that out.
Okay.
Will I lose you if I do that?
Nope.
No. Okay, just a minute. I'll flip into my email and see if there's a deadline.
Okay.
Your worship, you sound like a woodpecker pecking away there.
He's typing.
Yeah, he's typing away.
Jeez, you get a lot of emails. Just bear with me here as I find this. Yeah, it's a fairly generic letter. It's not very long. I could hopefully just read it to you here.
Your worship, you could just forward it to us and we could read it on the break. We could pass the resolution later in the meeting.
Okay. Why don't I do that on break? I will get my my secretary to forward that on.
Just so everyone knows, Minister York is just having a little technical difficulties, and he will be joining us soon.
Okay. Now, got to get back to where I was. Oops. There we go. I'm back. Okay. Did we did a resolution on ExploreNet? You say Minister York is just not here yet?
Well, I have someone called the Herald, and I'm trying to figure out if they're if that's Minister York or not. They're on mute, so maybe not. I'm just waiting for Delaney to.
No, that must be the Miami Herald covering our council meeting.
No, the Herald. I'm wondering who that is. I'm just waiting to confirm with Delaney that that's. There's Minister York. He's just joining us now. He's just getting in now.
Hello.
Hello,
Oh.
Mr. York.
How's everybody?
Morning.
We are good.
Great, good morning.
Morning.
How's our minister this morning?
Just chipper.
Good deal. Thank you very much for taking the time to spend a few moments with us this morning. Certainly, this is one of the advantages, I guess, now of our new Zoom world that we're in, that we can be in contact with a lot of people fairly easily. So again, welcome to West Elgin Council. And I know that we set a bit of a agenda of some of the things that we thought that we should just touch base with you on. Good morning, Delaney. I don't have that list in front of me. I don't know how you want to do this, Jeff, if you just want to go through line by line, and we can just open the floor up for some discussions and maybe some advice or your thoughts on some of these subjects.
It's up to you. I'm here for to service you folks. So you tell me what you want to do, and
Okay. Well,
hop on.
Mr. Mayor, the first item was broadband and connectivity in West Elgin. I can run through it if you wish.
okay. All right. Let's start off with that, Jeff. We've just had a discussion a few moments ago regarding some interest that seems to be happening in West Elgin from a number of different companies, Xplornet and North Frontenac and Tech Savvy. Certainly we have the connectivity committee now is, as I told council this morning, is starting to gain some traction at Elgin County, and we're looking at trying to move things forward. One of the big issues that we seem to be having a problem with is that nobody seems to be talking to anybody. None of the big companies will lay any of their plans out as to what their proposals and thoughts are about bringing internet to West Elgin are. Makes it very difficult for us to be able to try to plan where the areas are that do not have any broadband, and areas that have very limited broadband, and of course the areas that do have it. And is there anything that the provincial government could possibly do to help us get good mapping from these companies of what their plans are, so we can further plan on top of that?
Yeah, I can see what we can do with reaching out to those companies. I know they're of course under federal jurisdiction, and well, hopefully they'll play ball with us. Has SWIFT not been able to get that information at all? I mean, I would think they'd be step number one, and I can definitely work through the ministers through SWIFT to get that information as well.
Well, we're currently waiting for the Elgin proposal to be announced by SWIFT. My experience with SWIFT to this point in time is they're as much working under the bushel basket as everybody else. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of information in the past has come forward from them. Maybe that will change in the future, but certainly, as I said, we have these companies that are seem active in our area, but we really have no idea what is actually going on. The connectivity committee itself, that seems to be one of the top priorities, is to get some proper mapping that allows us to know where services are and where services need to go.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. I know Ernie and Lori Scott have been working to improve SWIFT from the previous iteration, and I think that's moving along. And I do know we have some more announcements coming out with regards to broadband from the government. I can't divulge it yet. It hasn't been made public, but I do know we're trying to make it an easier process and fully supported. So let me work on getting you those maps one way or the other to try to coordinate things, because I think that's a pretty common sense ask. I can try to figure it out for Elgin while I'm at it, because if we get it for you folks, I'm sure I'll have 9 other calls coming in asking me about it. So.
Well, I think it's something that I have, like the 2 o'clock connectivity meeting. I'll relay this conversation to that group, and maybe it will come as an ask from Elgin County to your office, and that might make it flow through a little smoother.
Okay. Now we'll get to work on it anyways, and we'll appreciate if Elgin as well sends in a request. That'd be good.
Okay. Any other questions that anybody else has got? Richard?
Yep. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks very much for attending our meeting, Mr. Urick. I'm Richard Leatham, Deputy Mayor of West Elgin. I'd like to just ask you a question on Bill 229. And I'd like you to explain why there is no one on your advisory committee southwest of Grand River, as what's left is a very large area and it's not represented. Is there a reason for that?
Well, the committee was made in coordination with the chair, and we couldn't have everybody on. I asked the chair to select the conservation authorities which provide the best knowledge for the transition we want to make for the governance structure and for the regulations to work. Locally, Mark Wales is on the committee representing agriculture. So you do have someone from Southwestern Ontario on that advisory committee.
Okay.
And it's moving along. I didn't want to create a massive advisory committee that nothing gets done. This process will be completed in the upcoming months, and at the same time, there'll be opportunity for comment through the posting on the EBR to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. But this is a smaller committee to work quickly. And the chair of Halton was coordinated. He has in my opinion, after meeting with all conservation authorities, has the best governance system in place, which is created an environment where there's actually coordination between the municipalities, conservation authorities, and landowners that is working quite well. And also utilizing his experience to make sure these regulations coming forth are going to work well in coordination with natural resources and forestry and Ministry of Environment.
Okay, thank you. And I have one short question, if you wouldn't mind answering. Could you please explain the reason why there should be a change of chair every 2 years on conservation authorities? And as you know, a councillor, mayor, or whoever it is, usually takes 2 years to sit comfortable in a chair before they really get into the swing of it. So we're going to have the conservation authorities run by people that are not really too familiar with that job.
Well, also, thanks. I mean, it'll give the opportunity for succession. So it gets conservation authorities thinking about who the vice chair will be to learn that process over the 2 years. We've also had concern with certain conservation authorities where they've had the same chair for multiple years, which I think brings stagnation to the operation and governance of a body. There's always good for change, no matter what. If it's business, if it's government agencies, if it's even politicians, we all get rotated through, and if we stay too long, things don't work as well as they used to. So, but we did put it in the set. If a conservation authority feels that they need to have that chair maintained, there is an exemption which they could apply for through the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Provided it's based on sound reasoning, they can get that exemption, and that chair can sit for longer than 2 years.
Thank you very much for answering those questions.
Thank you.
Just to carry on with that a little bit, Mr. Yerrick, this task force, is there any part of the discussion that is going to deal with the collective problem that a lot of us in southwestern Ontario have, that being the high water in the Great Lakes? Is there going to be any discussions about how that can be handled universally, or is it something that each conservation authority is going to determine their own rules with?
No, that's another good question. So part of the changes we made in the legislation was to standardize and make consistency across the province how conservation authorities enforce the regulations through Ontario. And part of this working group is Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, which was going to come out with a new set of regulations for permitting and wetlands and dealing with such erosion issues. I've been able to work with the ministry to bring those regulations into the discussion with the people we have around the table, because we have conservation authorities, we have municipalities, we have landowners, we have farmers. Everyone that kind of deals with those issues will take a look at these amendments that Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry has put forward. And at the time, they'll give their point of view if that's actually going to work at on the ground level or not. And then those changes will then come forward for broad consultation on the EBR, and then they'll put in force. But the whole idea of a lot of the changes we've made is to ensure that there is provincial consistency across the board, so that some areas that allow for protection of erosion, and there's other areas that don't, to make sure that if by science you're allowed to protect for erosion along the lakeshore, they'll be following the provincial rules that are put in place by the experts.
So you're comfortable that the makeup of your task force, there is representation from the municipalities of southwestern Ontario that both with Lake Erie and with Lake Huron and Lake St. Clair, that there's going to be enough input from those areas to be able to have the rest of your committee understand some of the pressures that those municipalities are facing?
Yeah, we have municipal councillors from rural parts of the province on board, especially those bordering lakes, and we also have AMO on there as well as Conservation Ontario, which also brings their expertise as the representative of all conservation authorities. So I think we have a good mix to understand it. We also have municipalities on the table who have actually dealt with erosion problems and had solutions put in place and know what the process they had gone through in order to make that happen. So we have even experience of dealing with it, not only having the problem, but having dealt with it. So it's quite favorable, I think, to make sure that the regulations put in place allow the municipalities to have the tools to work with the conservation authorities and the landowners to protect the shorelines.
Okay, looking forward to this report. What's the next item up there, Jenna?
The information on any information available on the expansion of Alderborough Public School or and our concerns about West Elgin High School.
I think where this kind of started from, Minister York, was a report that was made to County Council from the Children's Services in St. Thomas, and they did mention that a permit was coming forward for the expansion of the desperately needed childcare facility that originally was slated for construction at the Alderborough Public School. Fact to the point that a building permit was issued for the expansion, and then it was canceled. And we're just wondering, is there any way that we can get this back on track and get it moving forward? Do we try to champion that through your office, through the school board, through the Ministry of Education? I think the due diligence had been done, and it had been accepted as needed, and then things changed along the way. So certainly as a council and a community trying to move forward, we would like to see, you know, something happen about this. I know Councillor Talia and I had a very good meeting with the Minister of Education. We thought it was well accepted. I believe there was a member of the Premier's staff also present at that table. So COVID has come along, and I think now maybe it's time to start looking into this again.
Yeah, definitely. Step one, always dealing with the local schools, is to work with the trustees through the school board. The government doesn't have the ability to act without the request and plans through the school board on issues with regards to schools, school spaces, childcare. Without the school board directing and driving the process. That's just how our school board and school system is set up. After that is done, then of course that will draw me back into the process to push that along at the ministry level, provided the school board has been supportive and pushed it forward. The two trustees we have in Elgin, I think, are excellent. They do amazing jobs. They really look after our community. So it's just, I really highlight having an in-depth conversation with them both to see how they can push it along. Megan is the vice chair of the school board, so she's well respected. Not to say no one else is well respected, but I mean, obviously they have their support by making her vice chair. So I think they're both excellent at getting the point across to the needs of the community. I do know with the child education that there was some rescoping that had to be done through the school board with regards to the costs of the expansion. And I know that's with the ministry, and I have touched base with Minister Lecce to highlight that this is an issue that needs to come to conclusion sooner than later. And he's agreed to take another look at where it is in the process at the Ministry of Education.
Just to follow up to that, Minister York, the school board reps are attending our council meeting on the 25th of March. They just weren't able to get here before due to conflicts. So they are going to be, and they are prepared for information on that.
Good. That's good to hear, because yeah, they honestly will have more information on the school system than I would. There's quite a bit of autonomy with school boards in this province, and as I said, they're excellent folks, both of them. Done an excellent job this last few years.
Just to follow up, I know that Councillor Talia and I did meet with Minister Lecce in 2019. I don't recall ever receiving any correspondence as a result of that meeting. You know, do you remember anything, Teresa, that come out of that meeting?
Through the chair, no, I don't remember any correspondence whatsoever from that meeting, August 2019, that we had there in Ottawa at AMO. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. Hopefully, get that. Just to echo Minister Urick, yes, I've only ever dealt with Trustee Megan Ruddick, but she's top notch and doing a great job in her terms. So maybe we can bend her ear when she comes in March to our meetings and see exactly where she can follow up with that as well.
Yeah, I'll check in with Minister Lecce as well. That's not like any of my colleagues to, after a meeting as such, that you would have had to not have some sort of follow-up. So I'll check with that. That may have slipped through the cracks by mistake, but I'll check.
Well, I think it's an overall philosophy of a rural community trying to survive in the decades coming forward, and certainly a rural community like ours, I firmly believe that our future is in having young people move into our community. We've been fortunate enough to have a fair bit of fiber put into both Rodney and West Lorne, which now allows the new age of being able to work from home. But part and parcel of that is also having dedicated childcare in your community to be able to facilitate parents being able to move to our community and being able to have quality childcare while they are able to work from home and repopulating our rural communities again with these younger people that will come, hopefully be part of the community and part of the groups and organizations and keep our schools full. Then we're not organizing opposition to school closings, because we've taken the different approach of not trying to close the schools, but trying to get as many children in the schools as we possibly can. So I think it goes all hand in hand, and all of us have a little part in that whole scheme of things to make it all come together. Councilor Rowe.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Jeff. The second part to this question is, from my understanding, with regard to West Elgin Secondary School, and we did have what is called an annual update from the Thames Valley Board. And in that update, there was some interesting language talking about collaboration opportunities. I don't know exactly what those terms mean, but I guess I was hoping to clarify what the provincial government's take is on school closures. At this point, my understanding is that the provincial government has stopped any school closures for the term of the government, and if there is any discussion ongoing about alternate ways to fund rural schools, so looking at the funding envelopes as opposed to urban schools with higher population.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. With regards to school closures, you're right. There's a moratorium on school closures, as the process that school boards were using across the province was flawed in regards to the balance between urban and rural schools. As you noticed, in Elgin, we had quite a number of schools closing that were quite full, which has led to the revamping of that system. And that moratorium will stay in place until they've figured out the process that communities have to go through in order to select those schools. I do know Minister Lecce has been reviewing the funding envelopes across the board. I don't have any direction of where he's at, but as any minister in the government, we've been requested to review everything and anything we can in an effort to make them better, to find efficiencies in order to close those gaps we do have between urban and rural areas of the province. So I look forward to if Mr. Lecce is able to coming forward with that. I know he's probably mostly fixated on keeping our schools safe and keeping them open during this pandemic. It's going, I don't want to jinx us, knock on wood, it's going so well, so far so good. That usually the schools reflect what's happening in our communities, and but we don't know what's going to happen with that variant. It's undefined of how it operates, but they're getting a better understanding of it, and things are optimistic at this point. Which you asked me a month ago, I'd say things weren't that optimistic. So I think we're moving in the right direction. So I look forward to what he's going to bring forward with regards to how we're going to deal with our schools, urban, rural, and the funding mechanisms, and also to ensure that if schools do have to close, that it's made with the community in mind and the effects that it'll have in those communities if those schools do shut down.
Yes, if I could just use this opportunity to just put a plug in for the importance of our high school to our community in both in terms of employment, but keeping our young people here and keeping our economy strong. So we certainly encourage Minister Lecce and yourself to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks.
Teresa.
Through the chair, just wondering, is there a way that us as council can advocate to the trustees when we're speaking to them to bring level opportunities between the rural and urban schools? I just know that, for an example, a few years ago, our drama club at the West Elgin High School won to go on to some huge competition in Ontario, and the parents had to provide busing and the parents had to organize everything, whereas the urban schools were provided a bus. It was the same amount of kids because it's just a club, right? Just different opportunities I see like that. Science labs, same thing. I know personally I had a child at West Elgin and another child in St. Thomas for high school, and the levels with the opportunities and things that were offered within the classroom were quite different. So what could we do when we're speaking to the trustees, to what wording or what points could we maybe bring up that would be helpful?
Sure. I think what you just said is an excellent point. I know both trustees are quite versed in the issues with rural schools compared to urban and their opportunities that are out there. I would suggest, putting in a formal letter from council outlining your concerns for your high school and importance of it, the importance to our community there for that school to be maintained. And not only have it addressed to the trustees, I would also address it to myself as well, so that I can take that to Minister Lecce directly, so that he has that for his file. I think the other thing that you may want to impress upon him, and I'm just putting in a plug because I put this plug in provincially, there's quite a bit of movement in our government with the skilled trades and training, and there's going to be a host of newer opportunities for high school kids to work towards their apprenticeship hours while at school, announced or already announced, but getting into process over the next couple of years as it flows out to the school boards and they develop their systems. What I found, what happened with some of the co-op problems, I don't know if it's out here or not, but in East Elgin a few years back, to get the kids to their employment places, obviously there's no transit system in Elmer area out to the country, or the taxis are rare and few between if available and parents are working. Kids are having a heck of a time getting to the co-op, and previously the principal had their own budget for their special projects they wanted to do, and that the old principal used the budget to provide transportation for those kids to get to their place. It didn't come from the school board, it was an internal budget. Well, they got a new principal, and he decided that's not how he wanted to spend the money, so it basically shut off their co-op program for kids that had to leave the area, couldn't walk to the place. So I would request any of our municipalities start pushing with the school board end and the ministries, both education and labor and training, Minister McNaughton as well, that they ensure in developing these programs that there's adequate support for rural schools to have a transportation of some form supports in place to get those kids to have the same opportunities that, say, someone in Toronto can just hop on a subway in a bus and get to the place they need to go. So that's another little plug I'd ask you to take a look at pushing, because it's going to be very helpful, and it's better to try to fix the problem before it happens as opposed to seeing why are we left out, what do we do to fix it. Let's hit it head on early. And I've spoken to that point to both of the ministers as well. It's good to have, it not being the lone voice, is having as many voices as possible.
Okay. Certainly, Jeff, I don't think that this council wants to come across as, whining about every little thing that comes along, but it's a simple fact of who we are and where we're located, that we really do have to fight to make sure that we have a placeholder on the map, that we're out here, we're trying to survive in a world that is getting more difficult all the time, and certainly trying to put forward ideas and projects that make sense for the long-term survival of a rural community, and certainly you've been very, very supportive to all our initiatives to this point in time, and certainly we thank you for that. But we don't want the provincial government to think that we're just looking for handouts. We're looking for a path forward.
No, I totally agree. And I never ever take any of these conversations as complaining or anything. This is a sharing of ideas. And if I ever came to a council meeting and we just talked about how great things were, I think our voters would say, hold on here, what's going on? So don't ever shy away from telling me upfront what the issues are, because I want to try to help and fix them. And I think there is a focus in our government to bring more of a balance in place for rural Ontario, to ensure that opportunities are there as much as possible as other regions are getting. I always look. We have the benefit is that we have trees and we can see our sky and we can go for walks in nature anytime we want. And we live in, I think, the best parts of Ontario that large urban players don't. But however, opportunity-wise, we'd like to see a better outcome for outlying areas, especially our area. But I look at Northern Ontario when I've been up there, and they're jealous of what we have here. So it needs to be a better balance throughout the entire province, not kept to where it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, what's the next item up there, Jenna?
Rural homelessness and lack of funding.
Okay. You want to lead that off, Teresa? You're kind of the specialist in this.
Good morning. Delaney has joined us. Thank you, Delaney, in some of our meetings for our homeless coalition here in West Elgin. We had a need addressed in the fall. It started a little bit in summer, mostly in the fall as the weather got cooler, as you can imagine. So we are the short-term, long-term, and a steering committee going on for possible outcomes of what we could do for our area in West Elgin. As you know, in other areas, when you have someone that is facing homelessness and there's no room for them in out of the cold or any of those places, there's funding there to put them within a hotel room. We don't have that option out here. We also don't have the option for transportation. The OPP have addressed that they're not comfortable transporting during this COVID time, which I totally understand. And then we only have so many ambulances at one time available, and there's regulations around that. So we have a few roadblocks, but we also have a really creative, as I'll say, Mayor McPhail had said, we're pretty creative out here. So we have a lot of stuff going on to get that going. We just named our short-term shelter last night. It's Home for the Night. And we're hoping to open it up soon, collaboration with the West Elgin Community Health Centers, who's spearheading everything, and have some volunteers ahead. So we're just looking to see, once again, creative ideas, funding, anything to get us going with our homeless coalition. And more so just because, if you were saying before about the school issue, Elmer and like East Elgin and West Elgin, we're just a little bit detached sometimes due to lack of transportation, geographics and everything. So just looking to see your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, it's a difficult portfolio in general for any level of government, trying to make sure the proper resources are there. I know the provincial government has topped up quite a bit of the funding envelopes that are available, and I guess the affordable housing social service, is St. Thomas is the main provider of those services, and they just received money for their shelter, a permanent shelter to finally be built. And I always know it's an ongoing struggle with the sharing of dollars, the amount of need that's out there, and the amount of dollars available. It's between St. Thomas and Elgin. Finding that balance is a tough and ongoing go. So this is what makes our communities great is the creative thinking that comes forward, and people get the services they need. Albeit it's never totally easy, but you guys succeed in once you put your mind to it. So congratulations to all those groups that are doing that. I would, if you send me a note on some of the barriers provincially that are there other than funding, I get that. I can push for that. I don't know what envelope we could get that through, but it doesn't hurt to ask. But if there's regulatory barriers or something that needs to be amended during this pandemic, especially, I'm more than happy to take that directly to those ministers involved. I'd also, suggest reaching out to this St. Thomas to see if there's more knowledge sharing to help you out with or if they have funds themselves, and the Southwest Health Unit as well is quite active in providing support for and direction for shelters, etc., and other types of support. So, and you have a GEM in your community health center, and as well with the staff that are there and the supports they provide. They go above and beyond what their mandate is, in my mind, and are good supports. There's no easy answer to that, unfortunately. But we'll help you out however I can with that issue. Just give me some concrete direction on what you'd like me to push at.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, the Southwestern Health has been amazing already. Because of the times that we're in right now with COVID, we're not able to get some certificates for some of the volunteers. There's no training, so they are allowing us to kind of broaden our parameters. And then Ken Brooks from the Law Clinic has been helping us out with setting out the guidelines for a contract and what you have with residents that would be coming in that you're needing a place to sleep for the night. So we've reached out and had some of that. But yeah, I can send you a note, a little more concrete if we need anything further. But thank you for the thoughts. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just building on that, Mr. York, in our efforts of trying to create a well-rounded community, we have industries within in West Elgin here that are, like a lot of places, desperately looking for labor. And what I'm getting from the managers of those businesses is that it's very difficult to obtain labor. One of the barriers to that is housing. We're currently very, very short of housing in West Elgin. I'm wondering, is there a willingness that if a proposal was to come forward regarding an affordable housing project, if we were to bring that to you, is that something that we could have a look at and see if there is any assistance along the line for that?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely bring proposals for that. I just went through this with Elmer, in that it would have to be approved through the St. Thomas folks for the housing strategy. But however, in Elmer, the money that I was able to get through Minister Clark for their affordable housing, there's 1.3 million for their phase 2 of the Brown Street project. That was additional money. So it wasn't really an issue for the housing folks in St. Thomas to move that project quickly, because it didn't affect their planned out structure for housing with the money they have budgeted out. So yes and yes, I can certainly help if you have a project that's planned out that I can take to the minister in case there's more funds coming forward. You'd also have to make contact with the St. Thomas housing folks so they know of the project. They'll have to make an approval if I do get the extra money, or put it into their bailiwick to take a look at budgeting out down the road. But the quicker way is to try to hunt some extra money that Mr. Clark is able to come up with throughout the year through the partnership with the federal government as well.
Well, there's no such proposals on the table right now, but certainly I think as a municipality, we have to be looking at being able to try to do what we can to initiate housing projects within our community to alleviate what I would call a housing shortage. So certainly, hopefully we can collectively come up with some creativity that we can begin those discussions with yourself and whoever else that we need to have them with.
Yeah, definitely. St. Thomas Housing would definitely be a part of it, but also Minister Clark and Municipal Affairs would need to be part of that conversation as well when you get to that stage.
Cool. Next item up there.
So our next item were questions regarding some status of our grants. We did get the answer, thankfully, for the Rodney wastewater treatment plant. We are questioning if there can be any updates on our request for the grant for the old town hall in Rodney, as well as possibilities for granting for the Port Glasgow Marina breakwater to enhance boater safety, as well as staff would like to bring forward some issues we've been having with Transfer Payment Ontario.
Sure. So with regards to the projects for the old town hall, the Rodney wastewater treatment is great. So any of these infrastructure projects, and unfortunately it's always time consuming, it goes to the provincial level and they decide which projects should go forward to the federal government to get their approval. At this point, that's where the town hall is. The province has nominated that project to go to the federal level, and we await. There's no timeline at the federal level. They come in bunches, and then they disappear for a while, and then they come in bunches. I'm getting responses on different projects probably every other week at this point, and dribs and drabs. They used to come like a whole big load of them, but I think they're trying to streamline their process up there and get them out as soon as they're approved. So I'm still waiting on that, the town hall one, and hopefully they get through their due diligence and agree with the province that it's a project worthwhile of getting the funding. So we wait, and I will I'll let the mayor know as soon as I know, and then hopefully it's public and the money's flowing sooner than later. Regards to the Port Glasgow breakwater, there is a new fund out that Minister McLeod has announced through the Trillium Foundation. What is it here? There's two streams. The second stream, I think, is what you would qualify for. It's funding for municipalities and non-for-profit and recreational organizations to make investment in infrastructure, rehabilitation, and renovation in order to meet public health protocols and local community needs. To me, that spells out Port Glasgow's issue. I'm tasking that with Delaney to get the information once it's released on how to apply and application dates to you and Port Glasgow folks ASAP. So you can get that in there. And once you do apply, please let me know so I know that it's in. See how I can do to support that going forward. But they're trying to find better ways during the pandemic to utilize the Trillium funds out quicker and in larger quantities to tackle some of these projects that won't be covered under the current infrastructure programs that are available. So I was really, really happy with Lisa McLeod's ability to find that money in her ministry and get support from cabinet to move that forward. And you want Transfer Ontario issues? Well, I'm all ears.
Who wants to lead into that one? Magda or Janet?
I can speak on that. So Transfer Ontario, it's a fairly new platform, and it's, in my opinion, it's a great tool. It's nice to have one dedicated area for all grant applications. However, it's not a user-friendly, and most of the time we have to look for those grant applications because they're not visible under our user ID. And most of the time we have to call that dedicated phone line and request grant application, or if there is some kind of a progress report that we are missing, we cannot see it, even though the deadline is just around the corner. So is the province working on basically, to kind of resolve these issues that we have. And so, you know, down the road, we don't have to basically spend time and phone those dedicated phone lines. Usually, and in that particular situation, we're being passed over from one technical support to the other. So, you know, we end up wasting close to 1 hour every time we make the phone call. As the person that answers the phone, it can only provide general information. And if we are requesting information, you know, and technical support, we usually have to wait for that support 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, so the government has set out with a digital first strategy. It's led by Peter Bethenfalvey, who's Treasury Board President and Minister of Finance now. He's wearing multiple hats, and Lisa Thompson in Government Services to try to bring the government up to offering services in the 21st century technology. I can tell you, when I was in Ministry of Transportation, I was quite shocked to learn that Ministry of Transportation still use microfiche as a way of storing data and retrieving it. I remember microfiche in my dad's pharmacy in the 80s. Always had fun playing with it, but that's how I used to get your data to order product and that. And I just can't believe you're using that technology. So there is a movement to digitize government, and it's good to hear these issues that are arising, because we're actually focused on trying to fix things, and we actually have the supports and funding in place to deal with these issues. So definitely I'll relay this information directly to the ministers for their consideration, because if it's happening here, I'm sure it's happening elsewhere. And the whole idea is to make it easier for municipalities to get the information they need without having to pick up the phone and call someone. You know, that's we want that to be a backup issue. So that information, I wrote it down here. I'll definitely share with the ministers for them to review and bring back to their respective areas as they're reviewing stuff. And you know, there's always bugs that are going to be worked out on anything new, but the idea is to work them out quicker than later, so that people are getting the services they need.
Okay. Anything else, Magda?
If I could ask one more thing, Minister Urick. So back in December, we have applied for ICIP COVID stream local government intake. Deadline to submit the application was December 21st. Based on the information I was able to find, we should hear back from the province by the end of March. Am I correct on that? Could you elaborate more on that grant funding and when you think the announcement is going to be made?
Yeah, I'll have to double check. I never like to say definitely there's a date when it's not my ministry of what's going to be announced, because the one thing I've learned over the last year is that this pandemic has thrown a wrench in any type of timelines that come forward. And let me take that back and double check, and we'll send you what we find out as a timeline for that. Because you do want to get things up and moving for the coming season, and you need the information sooner than later. I get that.
Yes, basically, this application is for the municipal building renovations that are, we would get started as soon as possible.
Okay. Yeah. The other issue with all these infrastructure funds is you get the approval, but then you have the typical political announcements that have to be made before it is finalized. And sometimes I'll let the mayors know what's coming up when I find out, and he's got to sit on his hat for a week or two until we get the coordination. It's a lot easier to do outside of the pandemic to make these things happen. But yeah, I think I'll find out from Lori Scott what she knows and see if we can push from the federal side of things if we haven't heard yet.
Great, thank you.
That's the end of our list, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Magda and Jana. Just going back to the infrastructure grant applications that have been put in. One of the things that well, now that the sewage treatment plant has been finalized, that's not keeping me up at night. But another thing that is that when we originally applied for these infrastructure programs, we applied using real dollars from expert consultants telling us how much it was going to cost to complete these projects. That application was put in 2019. Here we are in 2021, and again, we've not heard anything regarding the projects. My concern is that materials, labor, the cost of the project is probably increased significant than from what we originally applied for. And I'm just wondering, is there any mechanism that we can, if we were awarded that infrastructure project, that we can go back to the funding agents and say, yes, things have changed dramatically from 2019 to 2021. The numbers are that much greater, and we're not, as a municipality with our share, in a position to be able to accommodate that, because it's now out of reach of our ability to participate.
Yeah, no, that's a valid concern. Heard a lot about it, especially when we're having the steel battles with the United States. It really affected a lot of infrastructure projects. That has been raised. I don't have a response to what the government response at either level will be, but they do have to start taking that into consideration the longer it takes time to make these decisions come forward. Otherwise, it might get approved, but the project would never be completed because it'll be back and forth on funding. Locally, Regina Monday was granted money for a new school in 2016, but the government at the time, for some reason, through their funding, didn't put enough money into it, and then building costs have gone up. So a school that probably could have been built and operating by now still is on the drawing books, and the costs have shot through the roof because you couldn't come to terms of the cost at the time, and now it's just amplified because the cost of building has gone to the roof. And I imagine it's going to stay like that for quite some time ongoing until we can get the economy up and running and supplies properly moving around the world again. So it's just good feedback to have, so that as we have those discussions at cabinet and in caucus and government in general, that we're cognizant of those realities on the ground.
Angela.
Through the chair. So, and just to kind of elaborate a little bit, I do believe that was part of the reason why the daycare bill was postponed in conversations. I know when they originally put the first tender out to RFP, the prices came back to be 2 or 3 times higher than they had initially budgeted for, and they had to make some decisions whether to scale back the project. They, I know, are looking at recoding it again, but the quotes are coming back in again substantially higher. So we'll see when the trustees come back. I do have that noted to ask them a question if they've quoted it now in 2020, 2021 pricing, to see if it's now 4 or 5 times higher than the initial quote. So if you could put that to your caucus to keep that in mind, that this is the problem that we're having with the price of all the materials. So thank you for that. Thanks for our meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess we've gone through our little agenda. Jeff, we'll leave the last word with you if there's anything that you'd like to add to our discussion here.
No, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for inviting me here. It's good to have this catch up and conversation, and I really enjoy hearing what's happening in our different areas of our community. So it really helps me with my I'll say arguments and conversations at Queen's Park level. So I thank you. Thanks for what you're doing, and stay safe, and hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel gets bigger and bigger as we progress into the summer.
Well, thank you very much. And again, it's always comforting that your office, your door is always open for any of us, that if we ever have anything on our mind, certainly through your gatekeeper sitting there, Delaney, she works that gate very, very well for you. So thank again to both of you, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for what you're doing as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care. Stay safe.
Take care.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I believe most people would probably like to take a quick break, sir.
That would be just wonderful on my end. That's very interesting, Richard.
We're all here now, sir.
Just to clarify, Gianna, we're doing 7.2.4 next?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The North Frontenac email got forwarded to all of us, if those of us want to take a minute to read it.
Yeah, I'm quite proud of myself. I did that all by almost all by myself.
Did everyone have time? Are you willing to make a resolution regarding it, or do you want to wait?
Well, I think it's pretty much just a form letter, and I don't think there's anything that's.
As long as the direction is to submit it, then if council gives their direction, I'm fine with that, but I just want to make sure.
Everybody comfortable? Everybody had an opportunity to look it over, or I'll give you a minute to do that. And
I need a minute or two, thanks.
what was that, Bonnie?
I need a minute or two, thanks.
Nope, you go ahead.
I don't think we would be able to sign this letter because it's not complete.
Well,
It's a sample.
yeah, and I think that it just has where we fill in the blanks, is it not? I think it's just the general intent that if council is comfortable with Magna preparing a letter of support for North Frontenac along the lines of the example letter is what we're asking for.
I don't have it, so I can't.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. I can.
Jenna, I'm sorry. I totally forgot about you.
That's okay.
Away right now.
Jana, I just sent it to you. Check your mailbox.
Okay.
What was that, Angela?
I sent it to Jana. Mailbox.
Yeah, both you and Magda both sent it to me, so okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. We just plug in West Elgin or whatever.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's all it looks like it needs to do. Yeah, and then the mayor would sign it, and we have his electronic signature. So, sir, if council gives you direction to move forward with that, we can get it out.
Well, I would entertain a motion that we respond.
Yep. Richard.
Say Richard and Teresa, all in favor of that. That is carried. Okay, Heather, we're back to
7.2.4.
Okay, new official plan, public engagement and communication plan. Heather.
I prepared a report and provided the community engagement plan and communications plan and the timeline just for council's information purposes on how this official plan will be proceeding. This point in time, we are staff are still collecting the final information items that Dylan has requested. It's my understanding Dylan will be preparing a backgrounds report to come to council fairly soon.
Any questions to Heather on this report? What are we looking at? A year, maybe, Heather?
A little less than a year, Your Worship. But yeah, we're on target.
Okay.
Yep.
So therefore, we have a recommendation that West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Heather James Planner, RE, new official plan, public engagement and communication plan for information purposes. So we have a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Rowe and seconded by Cameron. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, next item up, 7.2.5, declaration of surplus lands, plan 75 lots, 311, 312, and 313. Heather.
I have nothing further to add. Is there any questions on the report?
Seeing none, the recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Heather James to declare the lands legally described as plan 75 lots, 311, 12, and 13 as surplus to the needs of the municipality, and that West Elgin Council hereby declares the lands legally described on plan 75 lots, 311, 12, and 13 to be surplus to the needs of the municipality, and that West Elgin Council hereby authorize the disposition of lands without an appraisal as it is in the best interest of the municipality, and agrees with the clerk that notice of the intention to dispose of the lands is not required. And lastly, that West Elgin Council hereby authorizes the disposition of the lands through a land exchange. Any other questions? Angela Cameron, no? You moving it? Okay, moved by Cameron, seconded by Leatham. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, do we need to go to 7.2.6? Anything, Heather, you want to add to that report?
No, Your Worship, there's nothing further to add.
Any questions for Heather on that report? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Heather James to declare the lands legally described as Plan 75 Lot 318 as surplus to the needs of the municipality, and that West Elgin Council hereby declares the lands legally described as Plan 75 Lot 318 as surplus to the needs of the municipality, and that West Elgin Council hereby authorizes the disposition of the lands without an appraisal as it is in the best interest of the municipality. And lastly, West Elgin Council hereby offers the lands for sale through posting of a sign and through a call for proposals. Mover and seconder. Moved by Tallier and seconded by Cameron. All in favor? And that is also carried. Finally, for Heather.
Just hold on 1 second, sir. Oh, there she is. We needed to allow Councillor Cameron back.
Alrighty. Next item for Heather is update report on zoning bylaw amendment 24801 Pioneer Line. Heather.
What I can add is we're kind of at a standstill right now on this rezoning. Unfortunately, the council resolution was to have both property owners on Pioneer Line to sign into the mutual drain agreement with the current property owner of the subject lands. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The one property owner will not sign. They're wanting a specific clause in the agreement, which the subject lands purchaser's lawyer is agreeable to. However, they're wanting a GIS locate. They've been provided a map by the drainage superintendent showing them where the drain is, but they want it actually GIS. They want it located, pinpointed right on the ground. And unfortunately, Ms. Dale's client is not of the opinion that they think they should provide that to them. So therefore, the other property owner at 24803 Pioneer Line will not sign the mutual drain agreement. It is important for council to be aware of the fact that that property owner never expressed any concerns on this zoning bylaw amendment and never expressed any concerns on drainage to begin with. We decided to include them as part of this mutual drain agreement because we thought it would be beneficial. So at this point, I'm seeking direction from council on what council would like to do with this zoning bylaw amendment.
What are our options?
Well, options are to pass the zoning bylaw amendment application. The other option is to stand behind the original resolution of council, which would be to require both property owners to enter into that mutual drain agreement.
I just want council to be aware that either way, making a decision or not making a decision could lead us to LPAT.
Yes, I was just going to explain that further. Yes. So yes, by passing the zoning bylaw amendment application, we do run the chance of having the property owner at 24803 Pioneer Line appeal the decision. However, if we continue to require, so basically if council continues to stand behind the resolution to require both property owners to sign, Ms. Dale could be in a position to instruct her clients to appeal a lack of decision from our council, which would then end up at LPAT. These are potentials that could occur.
Councilor Rowe.
Just wondered what the usual process is for any landowner in terms of locating drains prior to building.
Well, they would work with the chief building official as well as the municipal drainage superintendent to locate a drain on a property. So a lot of times the drainage superintendent goes out and locates the drain.
We have spoken to with our current drainage superintendent who isn't able to be at the meeting. He has done everything, including offering to dig up part of where this drain is, and isn't getting anywhere with the other landowner.
That is correct. Yes, he has offered to dig it up, but the this other landowner does not feel that is satisfactory.
And any idea of the cost of doing a GIS locate?
I do not have that cost, unfortunately, but if that is something that council would like me to pursue, I could definitely get costs and bring it back to you at another council meeting. The other concern is who's going to pay for it.
Any idea what the cost of that might be, Lee?
No, I wouldn't have any idea right off the top of my head what that would cost. It would still require probably uncovering the drain in certain locations and putting some kind of a tracer wire through.
Do we have or has any consideration been given to a third party mediator, possibly Mr. Gibson, to discuss this with both these parties and see if there's some type of middle ground that we can come to before we move any farther? And if there isn't nothing, then we'll certainly have to make a decision. And if LPAT is where we go, that's where we go. But it could be somewhat cheaper maybe to see have a mediator look into it first.
Yes, potentially we could do that. Yes, absolutely.
I just want to caution that if we're doing that, we're still delaying a decision and we are risking A, development, B, an LPAT hearing regardless, and we're also incurring costs.
I'm fully aware there's no easy way out of this. What's council's pleasure? We move on with it, make a decision, and see where it goes. Teresa.
Through the chair, I just want to make clear, what's the timeline on this that we're legislated under to make the decision, or what is the parameters for that?
The decision, I recall, needs to be made within 90 days.
Okay, that's what I had in my mind, but I wasn't sure if that was still within that. So what is our timeline on that? What are we at right now? Do we have an idea?
I'd have to go back through and check. It starts from the day at which we deem the application complete. That would have been about end of October. No, sorry, no, beginning of November.
So we're
Yeah,
probably
we're
at that.
probably, yeah, we're at that point.
Okay. Yeah, we don't really have time to see about the GIS, so I don't know. I'll have to listen to what the rest of council thinks. Both options are not great.
Well,
Now, I can say this, from what Ms. Dale has told me, is that her clients are still wanting to work with all the parties. That they want to be good neighbors. They want to, you know, they're buying this property. They want to live in this community long term. They don't want to have any bad interactions with their neighbors. They want to continue to work with the other property owner, but they are starting to kind of, I think the patience might be starting to kind of run out slightly. That's kind of the message I've been getting from Ms. Dale.
and we don't have any definitive reason why not, other than just don't want to.
Well, they don't feel that the information they've been provided by the drainage superintendent is sufficient.
Even though he's offered just about anything but the kitchen sink to,
That's correct. They're of the opinion that they need a GIS locate before they feel comfortable in signing the agreement.
Councilor Rowe.
We done any other GIS locates for any other drainage issues in their municipality?
I know a few years ago I was involved in scoping out a drain in Rodney. We had to call a company in because there was a concern about a proposed minor variance and a garage being built over top of a drain. Lee, do you remember that one a few years ago that we had off of Queen Street? Did we not have to, was that not, that was a GPS locate, was it not?
Well,
And they ran a camera down the drain?
yeah, you're two different things. Like what they're asking for is we can locate a drain. We can send a flusher head down that drain and pull a wire through, and we can locate and flag it out. And then you would have to hire somebody that, if they're wanting a GPS located map, then you would have to hire somebody to with a tool to mark those coordinates that would follow where we've marked the drain out, and then they would provide the mapping based on our location. So it's kind of it's two processes, I guess, is really what they're looking for.
I guess I was just questioning whether we had any precedent that would be set in terms of how we respond to such an issue.
I don't have any other past experiences with this.
We've marked drains in the past, but just to the point where we would go along and, you know, put paint marks or put flags on the ground. To my knowledge, we've never actually provided any actual GPS mapping.
Councillor Cameron has her hand up.
Yes, Angela?
Through the chair, if I remember correctly from when we discussed this at the in-person meeting, some of the other residents that were there were saying that there's a drain that potentially runs through the other adjoining property. And I don't see that property owner listed on the joint agreement either. So, like, I do have some concerns actually that resident is not listed on this agreement either.
That was a separate issue.
You know, and
Yeah, that's a separate issue.
That was brought up as part of this just because it was their chance to speak to an issue. It's a completely separate drain. That's the way it was described. What it was completely separate.
is it not the same drain?
No, it's a different drain. The drain the drain that you're talking about right now was put in specifically for those two lots on Pioneer Line. The issue that was brought forward at that meeting was another drain that runs parallel to Catherine Road that there's a couple of the residents on the west side of Catherine Road that have had issues with water in the past. So that was, the drainage superintendent was going to look into that separately, but that's not the same drain as what we're talking about right now.
But the two homes at the end of Pioneer Line have a drain that I do believe that goes into this property. And that's what I'm talking about, not the one on Catherine Street. Because
and all three
and the-
properties, those are the three properties that we're talking about with this. One has signed and one won't. Those are the three properties. So I'm not sure. All
But
three
you're
are.
only listing property numbers on this report. So have the two property owners at the end of the street signed this agreement?
This
All the same
doesn't affect the two property owners at the end of the street. This just affects the two lots in question on Pioneer Line. That was the reason that
What about
was
the
the
neighbor?
reason.
Sorry, Angela, you're cutting out a lot.
Well, I can't control my crappy rural internet.
Okay.
So what about the neighboring lot that's next to where they're going to build? Shouldn't they be on the same mutual agreement?
But I don't believe that enters into this decision that we have to make today. As has been indicated, that's a separate issue that may or may not have to deal with in the future. What's in front of us today is whether we do or whether we don't, and it sounds like it really doesn't make any difference one way or another, that if this is going to go to Alpat, that's where it's going to go.
If I may just add further, it's a separate tile as well. So this tile that the Baduras are connected to, as well as the other property owner at 24803, they're connected to that same tile. So it's two property owners connected to that tile that crosses over the subject lands to connect to the Miller Drain. The other property is just, it's an old clay tile that goes from Catherine Road, I understand, and just basically crosses from the back of that property to the subject lands. It's not connected to these other two property owners. The only connection it has is connection to the subject lands.
And that's why they need an agreement to make sure those two lands drain into that subject property. And
correct.
That the people, when they build on that subject property, can't disconnect the other two properties. That's
correct.
Why they're involved in that's why it's only the three properties involved. Does that make more sense, Angela? Okay.
Okay, well, we gotta come up with a decision here. What's your pleasure? How do we move forward? Do you have a recommendation, Heather?
Let me just get my report up here. Just one moment. Yes, I do have a recommendation. It's that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Heather James regarding an update report on the zoning bylaw amendment for 24801 Pioneer Line, and that West Elgin Council hereby directs staff on the next steps to complete the planning process.
Okay.
Wondering what the next steps are, Heather, what you think the next step should be.
This is a tough one. As a planner, in my opinion, I'm of the opinion we should proceed with passing the zoning bylaw amendment, because we had an application for a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the lands. This issue of drainage is not connected to the proposed development we have before us, which is to rezone the lands to permit a new house. It's nice if we could tidy it all up as part of this zoning bylaw amendment application process. However, from a legal standpoint, this is not a drainage matter that affects the zoning bylaw amendment. It's ultimately a drainage matter that should have been addressed at the severance level, but unfortunately that did not happen when these lots were created in 2018.
Okay. So we have to deal with what we've got, and we do have a recommendation from planning to proceed with this rezoning. Do we have a move?
It would amend just so you know, amend the recommendation to say
Yes.
that to bring forward the attached bylaw to rezone 24801 Pioneer Line during the bylaw portion of the agenda.
Okay, you've heard the amendment. Do we have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Bonnie, question, or are you willing to move?
She's moving.
Bonnie will move that recommendation. Do we have a seconder for it? Okay, we're not seeing a seconder here. Without a seconder, what is option 2?
Option 2 is that council stands behind their original resolution, which is to require both property owners on Pioneer Line to enter into that mutual drain agreement.
And then council needs to decide if they're willing to pay for mediation, pay for GPS location, what they want to do.
Okay, we have a mover. Do we have a seconder?
And we don't have a move. Well,
Yeah.
so a mover for the original one, which failed to gain a seconder to bring the bylaw forward. So if somebody looks like Councillor Cameron wants to put something else forward.
Cameron?
I just have a question. If we allow them to go forward without making them have a mutual drain agreement, they can very well cut off that tile. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. They have the legal right to cut off that tile.
Yeah, then I know.
Councilor Rowe?
Yeah, if I could just speak to my original motion, and I guess my thought is we addressed the initial issue that was brought forward at the public meeting. It has been resolved. You know, we could end up at LPAT either way. I think it makes sense to move forward with the zoning bylaw amendment, and it could be a non-issue. That's my reasoning for motioning it.
Okay, well. Yes, Angela.
So the reason I don't support it is because unfortunately this council is being stuck by dealing with building by severance. And I don't want to have to deal with put future councils in the same situation we are now, dealing with drainage issues. And if this resident is going to have the ability to cut off a tile, I foresee future problems, and I'm not going to support that.
I just want you to be aware that that actually would be not a council issue. That would be between homeowners, and it would be nothing the municipality would get involved in. We chose to get involved in this because at the time of the zoning, to deal with an issue that was brought forward, like a concern that was brought forward. It is not legally our responsibility to handle these two people's drainage issue. It's a private citizen issue, and the two of them can deal with, would be advised they have to deal with it on their own in a court of law. It is not our responsibility and would never be our responsibility if we move forward. However, holding up the zoning is legally our responsibility under the Planning Act.
Yep.
We can get more of a legal opinion of that than you wish.
Yes.
You wish.
Yes.
But this is Heather and myself's both opinion. Heather has a master's degree in planning, and myself dealing with lots of planning issues and questioning lawyers. I want everyone to be clear. This drainage issue is not our responsibility as a municipality. We're choosing to help.
There's nothing we are legally obligated to do as a municipality.
Other than make a decision on a planning issue? Correct.
Yeah, this is just simply a planning issue that we have to deal with. Drainage is outside of that and will be dealt with, or maybe will not be dealt with.
Anna, quick
Yep.
question, because you've taken some courses under the Drainage Act. Is there any legal recourse that these property owners could take on for the municipality under the Drainage Act for not providing appropriate drainage outlets?
Not that I am aware of,
Okay.
because that is on private property. Was not part of the original design of the original design of the drain, nor was it requested as a change to the drain. From everything I understand, that is not our responsibility. Mutual drain agreements are private and dealt with in private small claims court.
So if council was to pass this zoning bylaw amendment, and if, for instance, we did end up at LPAT, the LPAT member would have to look at what are the issues at hand that are affecting this zoning bylaw amendment, and would have to separate out the drainage issues.
Vanessa, you got a question?
Through the chair, I'm just clarifying from our discussion earlier about LPAT, where if I was correct in hearing, either way we could potentially end up there, but yet it's not a municipal issue. I'm confused with that.
So we could end up at LPAT for not passing the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
And because they could appeal for a non-decision. And the homeowner of
24803, yeah,
has the right to appeal our rezoning and hold us up. However, both Heather and I believe making a decision on passing this, he could appeal it. We could say we had to separate the drainage from the planning, and it's and LPAT only can look at the planning issues and only look at the reports regarding the planning issues. That is the only thing they do. Our opinion is, especially, and Heather's especially, is that we would not lose at LPAT. It would be rezoned. We would lose if we didn't make a decision.
The only thing I can think of, and I've seen this, I've been between OMB and LPAT. I've been there about 12 times in my career. We could possibly see, because a lot of times when you go to these hearings, the members are they're trying to find a compromise between the parties, trying to find a middle ground. What could come about if we did receive an appeal because council approved this zoning bylaw amendment is the LPAT member may, for instance, accept the zoning bylaw, the decision of council to approve the zoning bylaw amendment, but may order as part of their decision to require the drainage to be resolved, possibly.
Yeah.
It's a hypothetical. I have seen I've seen it in decisions from the members where sometimes they'll try to find a middle ground to help all parties out. But that's a hypothetical. It's hard to tell because each member is different.
And that's only if that owner actually spends the money.
Participates, yes.
And puts forward, it's not cheap to put forward an LPAT appeal.
Well, the initial fee is that you have to come represented with legal representation, and that's where the bigger costs are.
Well, the initial fee is $400. It's still not cheap.
Fair enough.
Okay, has everybody got a good understanding of the two separate issues here? Number one, it's a planning issue that as a municipality that we are required by law to deal with. The drainage issue is a separate issue that, as Jana has explained, is something that on a private drain will have to be dealt with by the landowners in some format. Probably if they have to go to court over it, they have to go to court over it. But that's we've got no dog in that fight. This is a request for a zoning amendment, and again, we have a recommendation to proceed with it. I do have a mover for it. Asking one more question, do we have a seconder for it?
Angela, are you seconding?
Angela will second that. Okay, now we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of the recommendation? Okay, that is carried.
Okay.
That's kind of an anomaly that you run into every once in a while when things kind of conflict with each other. But I think that the right decision was made in regards to our needing to uphold the Planning Act. And where it goes from there, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, Heather, I guess that's everything. I guess that's everything for you.
Okay, just wanted to provide an update to Councillor Tellier. I checked on the circulation list for that Clacken Tower. 7 residents in West Elgin were notified.
Okay, thank you so much for getting back to me so quickly on that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to 7.3 from Magna, verbal update on municipal operations.
Yeah, so just a quick update. As of next week, looking at the current numbers at present time, they're looking very good. There is only 1 active case in West Elgin as of yesterday. I think it's time to bring full-time and part-time staff back to the office. So the plan is, that, and it hasn't been finalized yet, to bring 2 full-time employees and all part-time employees next week, the week of March 1st. And then the following week, we are planning on bringing another 2 full-time employees. So by March 12th, we have all employees back at work. We still have 2 employees on laid off. So as you know, I am in the process of implementing appointment only through Service Ontario. So that initiative will start as of March 22nd, and Service Ontario will be open by appointment only. As for the municipal office, the decision hasn't been made yet as whether we're gonna leave municipal office open by appointment only. I was going to bring that to our health and safety committee attention. We are planning to have a meeting next week. Right now, I'm just currently waiting for their feedback on to set up a date. But basically, that's the plan. Right now, we're trying to formalize full-time and part-time employees so they're back at work. And then we're going to move forward with reopening the office by appointment or to the general public. So I will keep council up to date what we're going to decide at the next council meeting.
Any questions for Magna? Seeing none, okay, Magna, continue on. I think you're on the right track, and hopefully we'll know a bit more today about what the future is going to hold next week from the public health teleconference at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda is committee and board reports. Recreation Committee agenda for February 17th. Who wants to report on that? Or is there a report?
I guess I can
Go ahead,
do a
Jana.
quick one. We hadn't had a meeting in a year. It was just basically that agenda was, that meeting was to update everyone on the new committee policy and to find out how we wanted to move forward with advertising for new members. Councillor Tellier and Councillor Cameron both attended. There were a few ideas batted around about what we may or may not be able to do for Canada Day, and with the hopes that we're going to return to regular meetings to try and get, while it may be a virtual session or it may be porch drop-offs, we would like to have some sort of celebration for Canada Day this year, and that's the big takeaway, I guess, from that meeting. I don't know if the two of you had anything else to add.
Anything else? Okay. Next item up, reports from councils and committees. Youth task team, the minutes are there. Teresa, that's your world. Anything you want to add to those?
No, nothing at all. The minutes are there. They're still forging ahead. They've had a couple new youth join, and just finding during this time difficult to engage with people. I think they're just tired of screens by the end of the day. For the youth to attend something in the evening is just not in their realm. So we're working really well with Mrs. Smith at West at the high school to try to kind of engage with the youth there to see exactly what they're feeling and everything that's going on at this time. So no, nothing else to add than what's there and what I've just said now. Thanks.
Well, we've got you. Heritage Homes is next up.
We were to have a meeting on Monday. If someone can forward me the rules, maybe I can just remind them that how many can be indoor and masked. So we didn't have it due to the weather. So we're going to rebook for March 22nd. The only thing I'm waiting on is to hear if Lee and Patty Reed, who's the director of the home, have decided upon garbage. Other than that, we pretty much have everything going on, and our financials we'll be looking over in March.
Okay, any questions for Dress on that? I know it's not on the agenda. Richard, do we want to discuss the yacht club meeting we had the other night?
Yes, we can briefly.
Okay, you go ahead, lead off.
Yeah, we had a board of management meeting, and there was a number of questions being asked, and actually Lee did get us some information that we needed. Everything's moving forward. COVID and the weather has been a stopper. You can't go digging trenches across car parks, putting pipes in when this weather's on. And so anyway, it seems like the drawings and designs been done for the pipe that going across the car park to stop the flooding, or to help stop the flooding from 16 Mile Creek. And they're getting in touch with an engineer about the break wall for the water coming into the marina. So we're waiting to see on that, but we've also told them that the municipality is not an endless cash pot either. Money, there's no money to keep throwing into different projects all the time. So we told them, in my opinion, they have to put their share equally as what we do, if that's the way we have to go. So that's the way I feel about it, and that's what I did suggest that at the meeting. The fish cleaning station, we're still waiting for the ground to be suitable, dig a hole, test the grounds, get some locations in there. And once that's done, and the 3,000 gallon tank is being orders been put in for it, and it's being the specifications for the tank, so it fits on the fish cleaning station, appears to be done. Is there anything else, Lee, that you could bring to the table on that?
Yeah, I think you've summed that up, Richard. Like I said, we're in the process. The tank design is, we're just waiting on that final design from the precast company, and we've had a meeting with regards to all the utilities. There's going to have to be water and hydro run from the municipal washroom to feed that new structure. So as soon as we get that in line, we'll have a meeting with that group of people that are on that committee, and we'll lay out the final positioning for it.
Okay, thank you.
The hopes is to have it operational by the time the marina opens up late in May.
Yeah, that would be absolutely ideal if that's possible. That, you know, everybody seems to be rather anxious about it, and beside the point, there's a lot of traffic coming in and out once the fishing does start, and it's just going to make things more difficult. So that's great news. Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor, I don't know whether you want to carry on.
I have a couple items, but Bonnie has a question there, Richard. Thank you very much for that report. Bonnie?
No, you can go ahead and finish the report, and then I'll see if you answer my question.
I guess there was a couple of issues on top of that. First off, I'd really like to thank Lee for getting that answer to the number of questions that the club had put forward in their agenda. That certainly made Richard and my participation in the meeting much easier. Lee did an excellent job of laying out where we're at and kind of where we're going with a number of the issues happening down there. One of the things that was brought up, and certainly I think that we need to have some discussions, certainly the drainage issue along front of the washroom there, that was seems to be a concern of a good number of the members. One of the potential solutions that was put out was initially was to have someone like Spreets come in and have a look at it to see what can be done to try to alleviate that. Further discussions kind of led into the fact that we do have a very competent drainage superintendent working for the municipality, and he is really reluctant to get involved because it's not a municipal drain. But he does have a few ideas and certainly some expertise. And I think that if we could, you know, have Tom go down along with Lee and certainly from drainage and from roads, have a good look at what can be done down there to help that problem. Instead of, you know, trying to go the route of getting an expensive engineer in to fix it. I think that we can probably do it in-house. The only thing that Tom, I think, was concerned about was the fact that that being that he's a municipal drain, he has no way of charging that to a drain. So kind of was a discussion that we had that if we're interested in going that way, that we would just we would pay Tom his hourly rate to go down and work as a consultant on that project. What are your thoughts on Lee? Do you feel between the two of you can come up with something that would be workable down there?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly don't shy away from getting input whenever we can. Tom has been a part of that over the years. Obviously, that issue is nothing new, and Tom was a public works employee up until a couple of years ago, so he's quite familiar with that from ongoing. You know, hope with any kind of luck, having that relief on 16 Mile Creek in place will certainly, hopefully, put a stop to that issue. But I mean, that's something that we can look at. I don't think that necessarily needs to go out to an engineering firm to be paid extra for.
That's kind of the way that we looked at it, and we told them that we would bring it to council's attention here, and probably it would be handled fairly easily in-house. One of the other things that was brought up is at the mouth of 16 Mile Creek, we were informed that there's a great big rock at the mouth of 16 Mile Creek. And it was felt that if we were in a position to maybe get that rock out of there, that it would open the flow up of 16 Mile Creek and make it work better. I don't know if you're familiar with that rock or not, Lee, and if you feel that it's maybe necessary that it would work better if it was removed. Do we need to have Valerie down and have a look at that to see what her thoughts are on it?
I believe I know what they're speaking of. I believe it's on the east side of the actual outlet, but yeah, that's something that probably we should have Valerie take a look at first.
Right. I don't know what the size of the rock is. We'll leave that in your hands to see if you can move that along. And it might assist us in getting more water out of 16 Mile Creek. I don't think that there was anything left, Richard, that we hadn't discussed. I think there's some concern at the yacht club in the fact that because we have been through a long winter of COVID, that they're feeling the potential of an early opening season for fishermen that just are dying to get out on that lake. It might start sooner than it has in past years. So that's kind of in the back of their mind too. But very happy to hear about the potential for Trillium Grant to move forward with possibly some assistance in the breakwater project out there. And so it just kind of reinforces, Richard, that the decision that was made the other night to discuss with the engineer to get the final details of the proposal, get it moving. So if that grant comes forward, we'll have good hard numbers as to what the cost is going to be.
Yeah, we'll be ready.
Yeah, and you're right. They had a number of issues that they would like to do down there, but Richard and I were quite emphatic at the fact that yes, we have money put into reserves, and if they have a number of projects that they feel are necessary, that there's no additional money that we will be dipping into those reserves, and that on the end, when it comes to the breakwater, that there could be possibility of less money that we would have to contribute. So this is how much we got, spend it wisely. And they seem to be good with that.
Yep.
Any questions, Bonnie? Go ahead.
Yeah, you've partially answered it. I guess my question was with regard to the offshore breakwall, and it was my understanding that with the combined savings that the yacht club has and the reserve that the municipality has to put toward this, that there was really sufficient funds to move ahead with that project. But I wasn't sure what was the holdup really. I mean, I think there was some discussion about getting MP and MPP involved to kind of, whoops, there goes the mayor again.
I had to move to my plug. I was running out of juice.
To get kind of a pre-approval of the project, but I just, that was my understanding, that there was really, regardless of a grant, sufficient funds to go ahead with the project. So perhaps with the contact of that engineer, that's what they're planning. Richard?
Yeah, Bonnie, you were quite right, but things change all the time, and what was a good price last year or the year before isn't a good price now, and that's why we're going back to the engineer and finding out what the finished project really will be before we even try to start, because sometimes lesser won't be better, and if we can get that grant and make it a little bit better than what we was hoping for, then we're going to get a better job in the marina. So I think if we use all our monies up that we have right now, we may not get the job that we were really hoping for. So let's get the prices on the table, and that's what it's for. Then let's see exactly what is needed, and then we can go to Trillium, hopefully, get the makeup, and the job will be done properly.
Yeah, that's the big question, is that if we're fortunate enough to be able to apply for provincial assistance, the job will just be that much better. We could possibly do a minimum, but if we're fortunate enough to get assistance from upper level government, that will allow us to do a better job out in the lake. So I was very happy to hear Mr. Urick. I know that both the yacht club and certainly myself, we've been keeping their feet to the fire to be looking for opportunities that might come along, and I was very happy to hear that there potentially might be one. Any other questions regarding the yacht club? Okay, seeing none, we have a request for waiving of fees for the tax people, correct?
Yes, to the library. Oh, Councillor Tellier has her hand up, sir.
Yes, Councillor Teresa.
I would like to support this waiving of the fees. I realize that we're giving a lot of rental time away and such for our facilities, but people are vulnerable right now. Residents are vulnerable, and I think this would just help them get where they need to be in a small way that we could provide and have that opportunity to do that for them. So I would support this letter.
You're prepared to move that? Okay, seconder? Bonnie?
I just have one more question. I just want to check and ensure that these dates don't conflict with anything else that's scheduled over that time.
No, it was checked before it was submitted.
And we won't be in a position to be having council meetings there.
You guys last council said you were comfortable with staying virtual. So this would ensure that means you stay virtual to the end of April.
Right.
Okay, would you be prepared to second that then, Bonnie?
Sure.
Okay, we have it moved to seconded. Richard, your question or you're all in favor?
No, I'm in favor.
Okay. Okay, that has been carried. Next item is accounts. I assume everybody has had their questions answered. So I have a recommendation that the mayor and treasurer hereby authorize to sign payment voucher number 2A amounting to $598,409.31 in settlement of general road water accounts and arena accounts. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Teresa, seconded by Bonnie. My usual question, we got the money, Madam Treasurer? She says, yes, we do. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to correspondence. We'll go through these. Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Rural Affairs, home-based food businesses. Any comments? Seeing none, Elgin County cancellation of the green recycling program. Ms. Teresa?
Through the chair, just had a comment with that. I wonder if we can promote this on our social media or on our website just to keep things out of our landfill. And if people want to go to St. Thomas and arrange a time that they can do so, maybe just make them aware of it.
Okay. Is that problem?
Do we not accept e-recycling at our landfill? Like electronics?
We currently do. So e-recycling would not go in the landfill. It leaves the land. It goes to the transfer site and then goes to London from there.
Just on the subject of the landfill, our operator's doing a wonderful job out there, Lee. Certainly pass that on to him.
I will, Your Honor.
Okay, that's it for correspondence. Anybody have a notice of motion? Seeing none, statements, inquiries by councilors. Seeing none, a matter of urgency. Not seeing anything. We are at our bylaw section. Madam Clerk, I will turn it over to you for the reading of the bylaws.
So the bylaw 2021-10, being a bylaw to adopt the 2021 budget for the municipality of West Elgin, be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Do we have a mover and seconder? Question?
Are you moving it, Bonnie?
Bonnie?
She has a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. There are some changes there since our last discussion, so I wondered if you wanted to discuss those, Magna, or...
Yeah, certainly. There are some minor changes. We can take all your questions right now if council wishes.
Would you like me to share the screen of the budget?
Sure.
I guess do you want me to ask questions or?
Sure.
Certainly.
So there's two options for the pool, and I'm assuming that this final version is with option 3 in it.
That's correct.
So will the other options be removed from this budget before passing? Just kind of confusing.
Yeah, well, I can certainly make changes to the budget if council wishes. I can remove all the other options that have been discussed. It has been indicated that option 3 is the chosen option. And it's part of our 2021 budget. But for transparency maybe and less confusion, I can change that. I can revise the budget.
Yes, everybody, I see what she's talking about.
I mean, it's fine with me if you think it makes more sense. I mean, hopefully next year we would go back to our regular scheduling of the pool, and so we would be able to see those numbers in there. It's whatever you like. I just found it, especially with option 2 first, it looks like we're doing option 2, but we're really doing option 3. So
I can certainly remove all the options and resend the budget, and we can post the final copy on our website as well. There is no financial implication, so nothing is going to change with the exception that all other options will not be listed.
okay. And the only other larger change that I noticed was the roads had 3 different items inserted that weren't there before, the trucks 8 and 9 and the back trailer.
Yes, when I was, roads department is it's a little bit complicated, and there are, basically in order to balance roads department budget, there are other accounts, sub-accounts that we don't budget for, but have to be included in 2021 budget in order to balance it. And I noticed when I hide those lines that we don't budget for, those 3 lines vehicle were not visible to council at the previous, was accidentally hidden. So that was kind of omission on my side.
So this area here.
Included in the budget. Yes, they were like the formula included them. It's just they were not visible to council.
I see.
Okay. Any other questions, Bonnie?
No, those are the main ones.
Again, the decision that council has made regarding the pool, I think Tressa would reinforce the fact that it's been the public understands the financial situation that we're trying to address, but also I think that they're very satisfied with the middle of the road approach that we have taken in keeping this pool open for our residents. Well, if you got anything to add to that, Tress, or not?
Through the chair, just to the residents that I've spoken to in my ward, and have just expressed that they understand that that's just what has to happen, and they also understand that it's just a hard year all around to get things done and get things where they need to be. On top of that, I just want to thank the staff for getting things out and getting things to us. I had sent late night emails and that Magda had looked at, just with different questions from the last time when we met. And just, you know, in the past, budgets have gone out quite late for other years, but we've done a really great job, staff and council ourselves, and educating us and such to get it out in a timely manner. So thank you for that and for being patient with us.
Yeah, I would like to echo that too. Staff has done a wonderful job on moving this budget forward. I think it's important that we continue on with that program of trying to get our budget put together as early as possible. And I think that, staff are going to try to keep that process going in coming years. Any other questions on this budget? We do have a recommendation. Do I have a mover and seconder for it?
Through the
Moved by
chair,
Rowe.
I call for a recorded vote for the budget for transparency for residents.
Most certainly. Okay, we have a mover, Rowe, and we have seconded by Tellier. Madam Clerk, do you have a recorded vote tally ready?
I can do it. Yep. So I'm going to do it by ward. So that would start with Councillor Tellier.
Yes.
So Councillor Cammert,
No.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Mayor McPhail.
Yes.
That is passed. So now we're on to bylaw 2021-11, adopt education reimbursement policy. So the resolution is that bylaw 2021-11 being a bylaw to adopt and maintain a policy with the respect to education reimbursement be read a first, second, and third and final time.
I believe we've lost our chair.
Oh, we lost him for a moment. Yep, we should wait till he can rejoin.
He did say that he was running low on batteries. Maybe that's the issue. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for him.
Do you mind if we pause the meeting for a moment while we reach out to him? Magda, can you contact? Oh, is he coming back? He looks like he's coming back. No, Bonnie and Angela have stopped, so call him.
Can I call for a 2 minutes break?
Yep. I resent him the invitation too.
Can we take 5-minute break?
We are on a break.
Oh, we are. Okay, perfect.
I resent him the invitation, but yeah, we are on a recess at the moment.
Okay.
I'm trying to resend the invitations to, so we seem to have lost Councillor Cameron as well. I'm wondering if there's some sort of internet issue somewhere because nothing is happening.
Have we found everyone?
Richard, we're wondering if there's some sort of technical difficulties because I'm trying to send out invitations to. We've also lost Councillor Cammert and to the mayor, and they're not working. So I'm not sure what the issue is right now because I'm still here, but I can't send anything or save anything over the internet. So
No.
I don't know. Oh, there's Councillor Cammert back. So she's made it. And I'm wondering if, because the location of the three of those two and myself with having issues, I'm wondering if it's a technical issue in our area of.
Yeah, I see.
Oh, there's Councillor Cammert.
My internet booted me out. Is there something going on out here?
No, well, I wonder because I just tried to resend you and Duncan the invitation and I can do nothing.
I can't do anything. It just booted me out. So
Yeah. And I think it booted the mayor out as well. I'm thinking because all of us are north of the river, I'm wondering if we're having a technical issue in our area because I can't seem to I'm freezing a lot, but that's it.
Well, the mayor's battery went completely dead. So
Oh, okay.
again, it takes a while for,
Yeah.
to start up the iPad. So that's why there was such a long delay.
Well, we only have a few minutes left anyway, but we might as well wait. While we're waiting, Councillor Taillé, I did send you that information on how many people are allowed in the different colors together. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. They were looking to have an indoor meeting with mass social distance, but I believe there's more than the allowable.
Yeah,
I believe there's 8 of us. So.
Well, in orange, that would be okay, but you can't all be at one table. You'd have to be at more than one table.
So what we do is kind of like we did the rec center. So we'd have those big long tables.
Yeah.
And someone would sit at the end, and someone would sit at the other end, and someone would sit in the middle, not quite 6 feet. And then with the next table and the next table.
Yeah, you'd be okay as long as you're masked and social distanced.
That's what we did last time, and we were in, I believe, orange.
You'd be, by the looks of what I can read, I think you'd be fine, not in red, however.
Okay. I was also just worried because we're also in a building with, I know they don't use that room at this time, but there are seniors at the other end of the building through that double doors. So just was worried about that. Thank you for that, though.
No problem.
We're back.
Okay, so we're back. We are on bylaw 2021-11, a bylaw to adopt education reimbursement policy. So it's that bylaw 2021-11 being a bylaw to adopt and maintain a policy with respect to education reimbursement be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Okay, mover and seconder for that bylaw. Moved by Rowe, seconded by Taillé. Any more discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Next bylaw.
So bylaw 2021-12, a tile loan rate bylaw. That bylaw 2021-12 being a bylaw imposing special annual drainage rate upon a land in respect of which money is borrowed under the Tile Drain Act be read a first, second, and third and final time. And just before you call the vote on that, sir, that is related to a tile drain loan that was approved back in December by council. The work has now been completed and we need to just pass the rating bylaw to charge them.
And this is time sensitive too, that we need to move on with it. So do I have a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Taillé, seconded by Leatham. Any more discussion? All in favor? And that is also carried. Next bylaw.
So this is bylaw 2021-14, the gas tax agreement. That's bylaw 2021-14 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between Her Majesty, the Queen Right in Ontario, and the Corporation of the Municipality of West Elgin for the dedicated gas tax funds for public transportation program. Be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Rowe, seconded by Leatham. Any more discussion? All in favor? And that is carried.
So this is the additional bylaw for the rezoning, that bylaw 2021-15 being a bylaw to amend the Municipality of West Elgin comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2015-36 for the property known as 24801 Pioneer Line. Be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder for that. And we probably don't need a whole lot of discussion on it because we've already done that. Moved by Rowe, seconded by Tellier. All in favor of that bylaw. And that is also carried.
So bylaw 2021-13 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council on February 25th, 2021. Be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Tellier, seconded by Leatham. All in favor? That is carried.
Would you like me to read the adjournment, sir?
I think, are we all done? Anybody else have anything that they need to bring up at this time? I've come to the conclusion I found the best chair in the house now for these meetings. This is my third cord to try to keep my iPad up to speed, but I thank you for your patience.
You look pretty comfortable there. And in fact, I think I see a halo around your head.
Really? Well, the sun is, I hope there's not too much reflection off the top of my head that's blinding you, but with that, I know it's a hot spot here. I'll, wait a minute.
Now where'd it go?
I think he's putting his sunglasses on for you. Yeah.
Oh.
We're all set now. Okay, read the adjournment and we'll.
The Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourn at 12:27 p.m. to meet again at 9:30 a.m. on March 11th, 2021, or at the call of the chair.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Rowe. Seconded by Leatham. All in
I
favor?
only agree if you wear those glasses next time.
Well, I'll tell you, these are the coolest glasses. These are
They're cool.
They are Bose glasses that your podcasts or music or whatever play through your sunglasses. So
See, you don't want him wearing it during a meeting because he won't pay attention.
Yeah.
Listening to something else.
all righty. We have a mover and seconder. All in favor of that? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And everybody stay safe and we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.